Hello, engineers, and welcome back to the School of Engineering. So for our first lesson this year, we're going to be talking about the engineering design process. Now, you may have seen this before, you may not have, but either way, we're going to go ahead and look at this process that engineers use whenever we're going to solve a problem or we need to build something new. So let's start off right at the beginning with the first step, which is to ask. So first, engineers need to figure out what exactly are we trying to do? What is our goal? Or what's the problem that we need to solve? And also, what are our constraints? Or what's the limitation? Because engineers usually can't just do whatever they want. There's going to be some kind of limit, whether that's with the materials that you can use or the amount that you can use, how heavy or how light something needs to be. Sometimes it needs to fit inside a particular box. There's always going to be some kind of a limit on how you can solve a problem. Now, once you have asked those questions and you know what you're trying to do, then we move on to imagine. So here engineers are going to imagine, just picture and think about all the different ways that you could solve this. So this is a process called brainstorming. And during the brainstorm, you kind of just keep every possible idea. Once you have a whole list of ideas, you might have like 20 or 30 of these, then you move on to planning. So this is where you pick one of those ideas and you start sketching it. You start figuring out what materials you're going to use. You might make a 3D model. And you just generally figure out everything that you're going to need to do to take one of those ideas and actually create it. So when we're creating, this is where we actually build the thing. Whatever it is, whatever our solution is to that goal or to that problem, this is where we're going to build what's called a prototype. So a prototype is sort of like a test version. It's building something before you know it's going to work. And prototypes are a really important part of the process because you can't just skip straight to having something that works perfectly. You have to build these like test versions, these prototypes first. That way you can figure out what you need to improve on. So after engineers have built that prototype, they're going to test it. They're going to figure out what worked, what didn't work, and they're going to try to improve on it. And you can see how the engineering design process is like a circle here. So it goes right back up to the top and we can repeat the whole thing. This is called an iteration. Just spelled like this. An iteration just means to repeat something. And that too is a really important part of the process because chances are you're not going to get it 100% right the first time. You're not going to solve the problem perfectly. So maybe you don't get it on the first iteration, you can figure it out on the second one or the third one. There are stories of, I think Thomas Edison creating the light bulb, and it took him something like 10,000 iterations before he had a good enough light bulb that would stay on long enough and not just burn out right away. So it can take lots and lots of iterations to solve a problem. Now, there is kind of a sixth step to this too, that sort of breaks the cycle, and that is presenting. Because once an engineer has their solution, you can show it to other people. You can show how your design works. You can actually, sell it if it's something like a car or a product that's going to be given to the public. So this is sort of the last stage when an engineer thinks, we've done enough iterations, our thing, our solution is done. Now we're going to show it to the world. Now we're actually going to use this final version.